Welcome back, third graders, to our science lessons. Previously, in Lesson 1, we explored the cause and effect relationships between the environment and the traits of organisms. In this lesson, we're going to understand how characteristics can affect the survival and reproduction of an animal. Let's take a closer look at this turtle. This turtle is not an ordinary turtle. It's called an alligator snapping turtle. Interesting name, isn't it? Let's watch this video together to know more about these turtles. When we think of turtles, we usually think of placid, slow-moving, docile creatures. And for the most part, this is true. Unlike some of their other reptilian cousins, such as snakes and crocodiles, most turtles are peaceful vegetarians that pose no threat to humans. Note that I said most turtles, not all. There's one turtle, the alligator snapping turtle, that can most definitely cause some harm to humans. So, before you go down to the lake for a leisurely swim, it might be a good idea to learn a little more about the alligator snapping turtle before you dip your toe in the water. Alligator snapping turtles are a species of snapping turtle that lives in freshwater lakes and swamps. They get their name from the fact that their rigid shells resemble the rough skin of an alligator. Well, that and their fearsome bite. There are many species of snapping turtle, but alligator snapping turtles are the biggest and certainly the meanest looking of them all. The alligator snapping turtle is one of the heaviest turtles in the world. This species of turtle continues to grow throughout its life, and like many turtles, this turtle can be very long-lived, and it can weigh up to 80 kilograms. Alligator snapping turtles are a solid gray, black, brown, or olive green in color. Their eyes are surrounded by a pattern of radiating yellow stripes, which serve to disguise their eyes. Their eyes are also surrounded by a star-shaped arrangement of fleshy nodes that protect the eye from damage. No other species of snapping turtle has this arrangement of scales around their eye. Despite their large size, alligator snapping turtles can be surprisingly difficult to spot. They often live in swamps and other sources of still water, and their shells are prone to algae growth, which makes them look like rocks sticking out of the water. Alligator snapping turtles are a freshwater species, which means you won't find one in the sea. Instead, they live in rivers and lakes. Alligator snapping turtles generally spend their time in areas with lots of fish, which are their main source of prey. They also like to stay hidden and tend to prefer bodies of water which are still and not too deep. Alligator snapping turtles most commonly hunt at night. One of their more surprising habits is that they will often sit on the bottom of a lake, pond, or riverbed with their jaws open, waiting for prey animals to swim inside. This seemingly lazy tactic is more effective than you might think. The turtle's tongue is vermiform, which is a fancy way of saying that it looks like a worm. By waggling the tongue back and forth, the turtle can lure fish into its mouth, where its quick-moving jaws will make short work of the fish. That's where the snapping part of the alligator snapping turtle's name comes from. Alligator snapping turtles reproduce at around 12 years of age. The female will crawl onto land and dig a hole to lay her eggs in. She will lay anywhere from 10 to 50 eggs in this nest. The gender of the young turtles is determined by the temperature of the nest they're incubated in. Temperatures above 29 to 30 degrees Celsius produce eggs with a bias towards females, while cooler nests produce males. Alligator snapping turtles look scary and can be quite fearsome, But as scary as they look, these animals don't mean us any harm. They're simply trying to live their lives the way their instincts tell them to. So treat them with respect, and don't forget, stay away from their jaws. Now, if we look at the pictures that we have here, what do you see? You probably guessed it, these are pictures of an octopus. How do you think the octopus looks different in relation with its environment? Well, in the first picture, we can easily see the octopus swimming in the ocean. However, in the second picture, it seems as if the octopus is blending in its environment so it can be hidden. Check this out. This octopus was blending in so well, it seemed invisible. In the first part of this lesson, we're going to learn more about how organisms adapt or survive in their environment. When organisms adapt, we call that adaptation. An adaptation is a trait or characteristic that helps an organism survive. Blackberry bushes are hardy plants. They can grow nearly anywhere, but this is just one adaptation of the plant. Let's look at the picture here to learn more about this plant's adaptations. One adaptation of this plant is that when animals eat a berry, its seeds are scattered after passing through the animal, which means that they can be planted somewhere else to germinate into a new plant. Another adaptation is that the blackberry branches have many sharp thorns. This will keep animals away and not eat the plant. The leaves and stems of this plant grow back quickly even after very cold weather or after a wildfire. Finally, these blackberries also spread from roots underground. Now that we know more about the plant's adaptations, let's label them on the picture with the correct letter. First adaptation is about how seeds are scattered when animals eat them, so it should be around here next to the seeds. Second adaptation is about the thorns that keep the animals away, so it should be around here. Third adaptation is about the stems and the leaves that grow back quickly, so it should be here. And finally, the roots of these plants are around this area. Plants aren't the only organisms that have adaptations. Animals do too. An organism's adaptations are related to its habitat. A habitat is where an organism lives and can find everything it needs to survive. To survive, animals need food, shelter, water, and a place to raise their young. Earth has many different habitats within oceans, forests, rivers, and wetlands. Now let's look at these photos to know more about how these organisms' adaptations are helpful for the habitat they live in. First picture shows a colorful parrot. Parrots have strong wings because they need to be able to fly from tree to tree in their natural habitat to find food. Second picture shows an emu. Emus are birds that have small wings and strong legs. They run quickly in their habitat because they can't fly. In the third picture here, we can see a vampire fish. Vampire fish live in rivers in South America. They have a mouth full of very sharp teeth to catch the smaller fish that make up their diet. And finally, we have a wild goat. If you look at the goat's teeth, you might notice that they are flat. This is because these goats grind up the plants they eat in their habitat. Now I have a question for you. Do you use more energy when you're moving around or sitting still? If you guessed moving around, you're absolutely right. What about this question? Why would you avoid eating a plant with thorns? Well, obviously, these thorns might hurt you, so you avoid them. Keep those two questions in mind as we get introduced to this lizard. Meet the armadillo lizard. This lizard is small in size, so it needs all the adaptations it can have to survive in the wild. If you look closely, you might notice that the covering of this lizard is spiky. Armadillo lizards are also known for their strong jaws. They can trick other animals with their tails. They remain still for long periods of time, so when they suddenly move their tails, their prey would get distracted, which gives the lizard the opportunity to catch the prey. Now that we know a little bit about armadillo lizards, let's fill in the blank circles with the correct adaptation. So we have the following adaptations. A. Spiny covering. B. Strong jaw. C. Drops tail. And D. Period of inactivity. Pause the video here and think about the answers, then unpause it to continue. Okay, so the first adaptation says spiny covering, which, as we said before, means that the covering or the outer layer of this lizard is spiky, so it should be here. Next, we have the strong jaw, which is used to chew hard food, so it should be here in the circle next to the lizard's head. Third adaptation is drops tail, which we said the lizard does to distract its prey, so it should be here. And finally, we have the period of inactivity, which means that the lizard does not move for a long period of time, so it's here. Now that we know where each adaptation is focused, let's fill in the blanks with the correct reason behind each adaptation. So we have the following. Saves energy when food is not available, discourages predators from eating it, distracts predators, and used to attack when threatened. Before you guess the answers, let's remember what each letter represents. So A is the spiny covering, B is the strong jaw, C is drops tail, and D is period of inactivity. Pause the video here to guess the answers, then unpause it to continue. Okay, so first, saves energy when food is not available. Remember when we said that moving around requires more energy than sitting still? And when there is no food available, animals won't have enough energy. So to save energy, as we said before, the lizard needs to stay still and unmoving for a long period of time, so the answer is D. Next, discourages predators from eating it. This means that the lizard will keep animals away from it, which is by its spiky covering, just like we avoid eating plants with thorns, so the answer is A. Third, distracts predators. This is done by suddenly lowering its tail, as mentioned before, so the answer is C. And finally, used to attack when threatened. Lizards attack with their strong jaws, so the answer is B. Let's watch this short video about armadillo lizards and then we'll continue our lesson.
South African armadillo lizards, which live on these rocky outcrops, have a different solution to the problem of safe sunbathing. They've turned it into a social activity. Whole families of them live together in the crevices among the rocks, and in the morning they all emerge to warm up in the sun. Of course, there is safety in numbers. There are lots of eyes to spot danger if it appears. And when one sunbather takes fright, they all dive for safety. If a predator is quick, it is possible to grab one, but even then an armadillo lizard is not going to be an easy meal. Ow! They have an additional form of defense. They bite their tails. The reason they do that is that it covers up their vulnerable underside and exposes only these very sharp spiny scales, which is very good protection against predators like snakes or mongooses. And they stay like this for quite a long time before they're confident enough to uncurl. I'll put him down and see how he does.
Physical characteristics are not the only adaptations that help animals survive in their environments. Animals also have useful behaviors. So, to be able to differentiate between a physical adaptation and a behavioral adaptation, keep in mind that physical adaptations are parts of an organism's body, while behavioral adaptations can be thought as things an organism does to help it stay alive. Let's look at some pictures and learn more about how a characteristic can be considered a behavioral adaptation. In the first picture, we can see some rats, called naked mole rats. These rats live in narrow tunnels. Sometimes predators get in the tunnels, so the naked mole rats can run as fast backward as they can forward. In the second picture, we can see a lizard. Lizards can't warm or cool themselves. At night, their body temperature drops in the night air. In the morning, they find a patch of sunlight to warm up in. Finally, we have a tarantula and a frog living together. Some animals live together or near each other. This frog and tarantula may seem like a weird example of neighbors, but they survive better together. The frog eats the ants that prey on the spider's eggs, and the spider protects the frog. So, to conclude the first part of this lesson, we should know that organisms have adaptations that can be physical as well as behavioral. And to tell the difference, keep in mind that physical adaptations are a part of an organism's body, like the lizard's strong jaw, for example, that helps it chew hard food. The behavioral adaptation, on the other hand, is how an organism acts, like, for example, how the frog and the tarantula work together to survive. So this is it for this video. Tune in to the next video to know more about how physical and behavioral adaptations help organisms survive in exploration too.